Your WavyOcho. I'm gonna react to Jay-Z. What makes Blueprint so iconic?
Jay-Z is one of the greatest rappers to ever touch the mic. His consistent lyricism and wordplay at an
Do y'all agree? I mean, some people call him overrated, bro. Like, do y'all think he's the greatest, or do y'all think he's overrated? Cause I ain't gonna lie, I be watching some of these videos about Jay-Z, and some call him overrated, bro. So do y'all agree? Let me know down below, bro.
elite level has earned him the respect of fans all across the board. And if you ask most of those fans which Jay-Z album they consider to be the best, they probably say The Blueprint. Released on September 11, 2001, Jay-Z's sixth studio album was indicative of everything hip-hop was supposed to be.
When it comes to the fam, I'm like a dog, I never speak, but I understand.
From the instrumentation to the rhymes to even the beat, this album contained a lot of what hip-hop had been missing at a mainstream level. But in order to understand what the landscape of hip-hop was and why this record was so important, we gotta go back a little bit. In 1996, Jay-Z released his debut record with Reasonable Doubt. Although in today's age, it is considered a classic, at the time, most people felt it to be average or slightly above that, mainly because around the same time, most people were paying attention to the bigger fish on the scene, most specifically
Biggie,
Tupac, and Nas. The trio had essentially redefined what hip-hop could be as a genre, whether it be commercially or fundamentally changing the way that rappers approach rapping. On the other hand, you had Hov, and he wasn't necessarily bad, but he wasn't doing anything innovative. He had cool beats and cool bars, but when compared to an album like Illmatic, for example, the record just seems redundant to the grander scheme of hip-hop. And again, that doesn't mean that Jay-Z was bad, he just didn't stand out compared to Biggie, Tupac, and Nas. However, as the 90s drew to a close, this big three of rappers were no longer the kings of hip-hop. Obviously, for Biggie and Tupac, it had more to do with their passing, but for Nas, it was just kind of that he fell off. And of course, when a king falls down, somebody has to step up to replace him, which is where Jay-Z came in. Whereas rappers like Biggie and Tupac were irreplaceable, Nas wasn't. And if there was anybody that knew that, it was Jay-Z. In retrospect, a rivalry was bound to happen, but we'll get back to that later. As for hip-hop as a whole, yeah, it was struggling. Although on the underground you had rappers like Mos Def and MF Doom, as well as having the South grow in popularity, most of hip-hop didn't have a direction. The genre just fell into stagnation, and it was clear that it needed a reset of sorts. Maybe like a benchmark to follow into a new decade. Something like a blueprint. Unlike previous Jay-Z albums, this really felt like the crowning moment for Hov. The moment where you can argue Jay-Z became bigger than hip-hop itself.
You surely appreciate it, but you about to witness is my thoughts.
From the opening song, it is clear that Jay is putting himself above the competition by calling himself the ruler of rap. But to be fair, that's kind of what he was. Even with the album being released on 9/11, the Blueprint sold over 400,000 first week. Not a lot of people are doing that in general, but especially not when fucking 9/11 happens. As for the song though, it was pretty cool. It just sets the mood for people to know what the Blueprint album is going to be about. Of course, it doesn't have a greater narrative or anything, but the lyrics are cool. And again, it's no exaggeration for Jay-Z to say that he was the hottest rapper at the time, especially after lighting the world up with the Summer Jam set.
Everybody top of that building, make some motherfucking noise.
His performance in 2001 Summer Jam is as iconic gets. He had guests like Beanie Siegel and Missy Elliott, but even more than that, Michael Jackson showed up. He's not even there to like sing or anything, he just shows up to take pictures with Jay-Z and his friends.
I love you very much.
Like, yo,
Legends.
that's pretty crazy. And that's not even the most notable thing about the performance that Jay-Z had. Because what most people remember from this performance is the debut of the song Takeover.
OC, we running this rap shit.
Track 2 of The Blueprint is one of the greatest diss tracks of all time.
Rapping for the students of the game, we pass the class cause nobody can read you news like we do.
It's taking aim at Queensbridge rappers, Mobb Deep, and Nas.
Guys don't want it with Ho. Ask Nas, he don't want it with Ho.
The song really just boiled down to it being years of Jay-Z throwing shots at Nas, Nas throwing shots at Jay-Z, Jay-Z throwing shots at Mobb Deep throwing shots at him. This collision course was bound to happen, especially with Nas and Jay-Z, because either directly or indirectly, they both wanted the same thing. They wanted the crown, they wanted to be called the King of New York. And to be honest, Takeover should have solidified the argument for Jay-Z being the top guy.
I know you Mr. Nas,
His narrative is just like, yo dog, you fell off. Like, you used to be good, now you're not good no more.
That's a one hot album every 10-year average, and that's so.
And of course, nowadays you can say Ether is better or whatever. I think it's 50-50 to be honest with you. But that doesn't take away from that moment. Like, that shit still gets brought up till this day. And I guess I should mention that the production on this song was handled by a young producer called Kanye West. The story of The Blueprint really goes beyond Jay-Z, because not only did it establish Hove as the top dog in the industry, it also brought Kanye West and Just Blaze to the spotlight. And although at the time those two producers and those two names might have not meant a lot to a lot of people, now we know that they were very influential in the sounds of the 2000s. And having these two on the album was incredibly refreshing, considering the mainstream hip-hop of the late 90s was basically a bunch of lazy sampling if you really think about it. For Kanye,
H to the Izzo. That song was classic. Feel me?
production on H to the Izzo helped the song become the biggest hit of the album.
H to the Izzo, B to the Izzy.
The sample flip of I Want You Back by the Jackson 5 is iconic.
We can talk, but money talk, so talk more.
While on the other side of the coin, you had Just Blaze.
I can't see him coming down my eyes, so I gotta make the song cry.
Although a song like Song Cry isn't the hit that H to the Izzo was, for a song like this, how well it does on the charts doesn't matter. Mainly because songs like these are more about how it impacts the person listening to it.
Fuzzy and they don't remember that, and I don't remember you.
And although Jay-Z's bars carry a big part of what made this song iconic, it was mostly the production that got the point across. And I think that's true for most of the album, by the way. In that, what makes The Blueprint iconic is Jay-Z, but it is also the sound behind it. Actually, it more so is the story behind it. And the fact that for the 2000s, this was the blueprint. This album had what people were looking for in Reasonable Doubt. A reason for Jay-Z to stand out beyond just cool bars and cool beats. It had influence and it showed innovation. And because of that, The Blueprint is considered to be one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. Anyways, yeah, the fall off is incredible. I would shout y'all out, but
So make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the vibes. Or just checking out you are.